welcome to our last session. The entire goal of this was to help you understand yourself, how your emotions are formed, how you feel pain, how you relate to society, how society relates to you, and how sometimes we have become part of society that we're probably not very happy with. So the goal is to try to complete this circle and give you action steps that make sense and allow you to be able to look back when something doesn't go well and try to find a way through it and be able to work on it yourself. Highly recommend that if you need assistance that you find those experts that are excellent in the field and work yourself through it. But make sure that those excellent therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists don't throw you back into an old paradigm of you need me forever instead of helping you be able to need yourself and to help yourself and to affect yourself. Does that make sense? So that's the goal. So tonight, your life journey is your own. I gave you a sheet of paper to fan yourself with. And the reason I'm giving you this right now, I want you to understand that the goal of this sheet of paper, as you make notes or you make additional steps or anything else that you want to make points of, right now for some of you that might be your first night, it's going to be a little bit confusing in the beginning because you don't have some of the background and it's impossible to do all of it each time, but we are going to hit on these things to rebuild on these things, so hopefully you'll still be able to apply them. Does that make sense? So keep in mind that the goal is that you will be able to look at any situation you face, look at these patterns associated with it, and then be able to at least question yourself, self-apply, and try to find a way through it. Once we get a basis of understanding what formulates our decisions and where we are today was created by past events that became part of us. Does that make sense so far? All right. Okay, so we're on parole, all of us, hopefully getting out of jail. That's the goal, okay? I pulled this only because I wanted to know that those people that were on parole, how many ended up in jail and didn't end up in jail, and why did they end up in jail? And it's real interesting. The success that you will have tonight and in the future has a lot to do with the exact same application of what we have with people that have gone to jail. Kind of interesting. Almost exact same patterns across the line, because in a way, we're all in jail trying to find a way to get on parole to get through whatever is hurting us, tearing us apart, and we're struggling with. Okay? So keep it in mind. So having an antisocial peer group, those people try to fit in at all costs because it's the only group they know. Drugs and addiction, well, let me tell you, it's addiction. And shame and addiction don't happen without each other. If you're not shame-based, you don't have addictions. You have addictions, you've got to have shame, because that's the only pattern that comes through. And we'll mention that, we'll cover that in a little bit. Lack of self-control. You don't develop in certain emotional states. What we do know is a majority of people don't develop on all emotional states because they're not exposed to all emotional states. Okay? At all. So how could you know the emotional state if you've never been in the emotional state? Does that make sense? And if you don't know that, you're going to be deficient. And many of these individuals that have gone to jail when they're 16 or 18 or 21, they didn't develop any of this, okay? In fact, what they did develop probably was emotional character that you probably don't want long-term, okay? Antisocial belief system, loneliness, the idea of isolation being acceptable because they're supposed to be lonely. Nobody wants to be around them. That's how they feel. And then they got poor self-care patterns, poor emotional development, poor body budget management, we'll talk about that, negative affect. 90% of all your decisions are made based upon those three things being out of us, okay? That we know by science is pretty clear. It'd be nice to think that we're so logical, but we just aren't. And this is when the ones that get themselves kind of turned around, they go through risk assessments and needs, they're assessed and met with support and retrained. In other words, they find their problem and they retrain their problem and they get the support they need, and guess what? They get better. Individual motivators, it's a mindset. Choosing to not let it tear you down again, and having individuals in your life that support you through that process is the goal, right? A target and render intervention. Your brain, your emotions, and your body budget determine whether those interventions are going to hold or not. Rewiring your brain top to bottom, every cell, and we'll recover that a little bit so it makes sense to you. Because the truth is, if every cell in your body doesn't change, eventually the cells that don't change will change you back. And we'll cover that a little bit more detail. Increased positive reinforcement, self-development, becoming authentic as a person. Remember we talked about the Groovy Tunes person that is just cool no matter what's up, no matter what anybody thinks. It doesn't matter what you say, and it doesn't matter what you think of them. They're just fine. How do you get like that? Is that amazing? I don't see any in here. Do we have any? You want to be one? The addiction thing. That's right. I'm going to be addicted to authentic. Okay. And then ongoing support until prepared for a better life. The point is, this needs to be there. You don't get to say, I'm changing tonight. And that's all over, right? Because they didn't build all these other things that carry them through. And isn't it about exactly what happens with those that do go back to jail and those that don't go back to jail? Just like we go back to our same habits in comparison to the ones that don't go back to the same habits. Many of you said, I don't know. I don't know why I do that. Well, you do. You just haven't figured out why you do that. And then you got to change it. And then you got to want to change it. And then you got to support it. Well, who wants to do all that work? Those that want to live a different life. That's the goal, okay? Refresher, stress can kill. Would everyone agree that stress, we know that over 70% of the reason that you go to a doc for psychological or physical reasons is stress related. It could be physical stress, chemical stress, spiritual stress, emotional stress. Most kind of buy on that. I was like, yeah. Problem is you say, well, what's going on? Stressed out. And? Because it doesn't mean anything. Stressed out why? Stressed out where? How'd you get it? Why you have to stay that way? Why you have to feel that way every time you hear somebody's tone of a voice it sounds like? You follow me? Okay. Stressful events. These are, by the way, the list, has been grossly expanded. Okay, just so you know. This is very limited. Truth is, if you have 3 or more of these within 5 years, your likelihood of death goes up by over 50%. Isn't that weird?
Your likelihood of death?
Likelihood of death goes up by mistakes. You have a tendency to not be concentrating on things because of the severe trauma associated with it. I always love somebody that loses somebody and they say, yeah, they died. And they don't think there is anything they need to worry about. And working through that is a really big issue. Okay? Okay? Oh, I want to go back to that one. See this? About 2 years. You have one of those stressful events. You got about 2 years to be half sane. I mean, even if you ever don't get sane, you don't have a chance if you don't give yourself about 2 years. Because that's the amount of damage it does and about how long it takes for your whole body to get real again. And that's only if you're doing the right thing. Whatever the right thing is for you, right? So keep that in mind. So if you go through a separation, a divorce, death of a spouse, a personal illness, you're going to find that this plays a much bigger issue than you think. Because what are we as Americans? We are chronically ill human beings. We have a healthcare system's job is to keep us chronically ill. That's weird. Hey, what's your job? I'm trying to keep you sick. I just don't want you dying. I just need to keep you well enough that you don't die. That's the healthcare system. And we pay for it handsomely. Where they say 80% of the population spend all of their money they've earned in their life, the last bits of their dollars, trying to stay alive the last 2 weeks. 80%. What a statistic. Now you can see why if somebody knew that, they're saying, hey, just like kill me. I mean, if I'm done, don't resuscitate. At least somebody's got 2 weeks of money left, right? Somebody in my family could have, but that's where they get the money. Isn't that crazy? 80%. That is a high number. But we never put all this together so somebody can hear it so that you can make a logical choice of what's best for you. So the impact is what? All these diseases, will you say that stress doesn't impact every one of them? Say yeah? So we can accept the idea that stress of some sort eventually will induce, now many of these diseases have multiple factors. This one right here, emotional physical pain. High level throughout all societies. But remember, your brain feels the emotional pain and the physical pain at the exact same points in your brain. So, if you're pissed off, you got more physical pain. And if you strained your back and you hurt, guess what? You have more emotional pain. Things that bother you more that day. That's why sometimes when my lovely wife will know that sometimes I just say, I'm just not in a good mood. You don't really want to talk to this. There's no reason to have a discussion with me because I don't know what I'm going to say, do, or think because I'm not okay. And it's good because I never used to be able to do that. Because, I just thought, of course it had to be her, the kids, it had the, patience. They're all the cause, I had all the reasons, right? So let's start here. Basic rundown. Everything I'm going to cover occurs simultaneously. You come up with an idea. Give me one thing we're going to do tonight. What? Give me one thing. We're going to do what? We're going to lose weight. We're going to exercise. We're going to stop yelling. What are we going to do tonight? Just give me one.
Stop biting fingernails.
Stop biting your fingernails. I went drastic. I want something tough. No. Stop biting fingernails is actually a reasonable thing because then it's, we're not talking about males and females. We don't deal with, no, just kidding. Okay, so let's say we make a choice. We're not going to bite our fingernails. Now, do you know why you bite your fingernails? Most of the time you don't. It's a habit. What's a habit? A habit is something you've done multiple times, over and over, and you don't know why you do it. You've just been doing it forever. It's not very healthy, and it doesn't look good, and it's hard on your nails, and I'm sure there's things about your teeth that are bad, but I don't have a dentist in here to tell me, okay? But here's the first thing. As soon as Patty decided that she is going to stop biting her nails, her nervous system goes, stop biting nails. We just decided. And it sends out a neural pulse all the way through every part of your body and says, don't bite your nails. Now, most of the body's going, I don't really believe you, but okay. You said it. That's good. Second thing that happens, neuropeptides. Your brain starts making a bunch of Star Trek ships, millions of them, that go all over your body to say, we're not biting nails anymore. Get the note. Here's the message. No nail biting. We're done. We're not doing it anymore. And then the hormones here, hey, we're not doing it. We can get emotionally committed to this thing. We're not biting our nails anymore. We're just not doing it. That's what happens. Okay? But here's what really happens also at the exact same time. Emotionally, Patty decided, I'm not biting my nails. I'm not doing it. Okay? She simulates what it feels and looks like in her mind, not biting her nails. She's thinking, I don't know, maybe I will bite my nails. Isn't it? It's just like, that's right. I won't bite my nails. I won't bite my nails. I won't bite my nails. I'm not biting my nails. So she's simulating, predicting, and then she's going to at some point compare by the end of the day, did I bite my nail? Well, I only bite my thumb. I did bite my thumb a little bit. Well, heck with it. Throw in the towel or recommit that, okay, I messed it up a little bit, but what was the cause of it? Well, my husband said this, my kids called me that, and that bothered me, and I started biting my nail. So, oh my gosh, I found out something. When somebody says something to me that upsets me, I bite my nails. Oh. So now we got a whole different thing is she now can predict of saying, I usually don't bite my nails until somebody pisses me off. Then I want to bite my nails, right? Make sense? She can now start this whole thing over again. Okay? Guess what else will make a difference? How she feels and how much energy she has will inset whether she breaks that line or not. In other words, gets home, it's late at night, you're exhausted, and the resistance of not biting the nails starts becoming pretty difficult, doesn't it? It's like, oh, if I could just bite my nails, I would feel better, and I don't know why. Another identifier. What is it? When I'm tired, I'm probably going to bite my nails. Okay? You follow me? Just a little bit. We're going to break this down because this is what we covered for 3 months to get here. Okay? So the bottom line is, and all this happens instantaneously when she says, I'm not biting my nails. Okay? So keep that in mind. A large majority of illness is a combination of emotion, affect, and total body budget. That's just your total body energy output, which has been developed by each of us based on how we view and accept the stress from our environment. So for some people, how they look at the same situation is different. How they accept the same situation. Right, twins. The mom says the same thing to the twins. One is crying in the corner, the other one saying, yeah, right, Mom, never mind. Right? Why? Why does one accept it that way and the other one not? There's the mystery. It's very hard to delineate. What is it? Why is it that two people hear exactly the same message from the same mother and they're identical twins, but they react differently? Why?
One's like the dad, the other one's like the mom.
Could be. Could be. But oddly enough, for some reason, individuals will look at something differently before it ever got to that point and decided they had this relationship with mom that mom can tell you what to do, but she never follows through. So the one decided, I don't have to worry about that. The other one's like, she got spanked, and guess what? She locked it in. Mom says something, I'm going to start crying because I know what's coming next. So they are hearing the same thing. We're seeing the same picture, and we're thinking, well, why are they reacting differently? Why are they feeling differently? Well, why? Because the only reason they got to that point is from something that occurred from the birth on up that made them think that mom's not that serious. Mom's real serious. You follow me? That's how they're created. Otherwise, they don't create. Everything starts from birth, and you create it. And you create it based upon your experience and what you do with it. Does that make sense? It's really important, okay? Okay, so remember, here's that brain, emotions, affect, body budget, okay? Remember we talked about this. That's that neurotransmitter we just talked about, right? Okay? Patty said, not bite my nails. Whole system goes, cool. I didn't want to bite nails anymore anyhow, okay? Neuropeptides. Star Trek chips, millions of them everywhere, telling your body we're not biting nails. Remember, this is applies for anything. I'm not eating cheesecake, okay? I'm not staying up past 10 o'clock. I'm going to get some sleep. I'm not going to this. I'm not going to that. Or I'm going to do this. Or I'm going to do that. Does that make sense? And then the hormones follow up, okay? I'm going to only point out one thing that's really important, because you got a lot of hormones, don't you? A lot. In the digestive system, there's a lot of hormones. Your fat has a huge amount of hormones. I didn't list them that way. They have 36 hormones that your fat puts out based upon what you're doing with that. Isn't that weird? So when you lose a lot of weight, you get highly emotional. Never thought about that, because your fat's fighting against you losing weight. Because all these hormones are spreading out and going, what are you doing? I'm shriveling up here. You're making me, what is that? I can't stay a cell if you keep shriveling me. Your hormones tell you to stop. Isn't that weird? Just don't think about it. That's why a lot of people struggle with it, okay? But pineal gland, specifically, this tiny little gland, you see that, melatonin? It starts and stops that circadian rhythm, which causes all reproductive hormones to start and stop based upon melatonin. You don't sleep on a consistent basis, all this system goes to pot. Not smoke pot, but it's pot, okay? So keep that in mind, that's your starting point. If hormones are dysfunctioning, first thing you look at is your sleep rhythms, and then you go through all kinds of other things. Can't tell you how many people is like, how many hours you sleep? Well, you don't understand. I got these kids, I got the husband, I got this, I'm working, da-da-da-da. I get 4.5 hours, and they wonder why they feel bad and why they're gaining weight. Well, how could they not? They don't have a chance. So does sleep make a difference? Huge. And Americans are really bad at it. Italians, those people sleep forever. I don't know what they do, but they're sleeping all the time. I don't know. Is there any Italians here? Okay, so remember, your body's going to fight back, right? Okay, so why? Okay, let's take it a little bit further, and let's say that I have a tendency to be stressed out at people not following my recommendations. I mean, I need them to follow through, and if they don't, I'm getting ticked. And it bothers me, and it's serious, and it's important, right? And I go home, and I'm irritated about the whole thing, right? But I decided, I'm not going to let that bother me anymore. My body's used to stress hormones, a certain blood sugar level, a certain dietary habit, the way I think, the way my Star Trek messengers are going out. They're used to me being irritated every day because there's always one patient not doing what they're supposed to do, isn't there? Or my husband, or my kids, or the neighbor. There's always somebody, right? We all live that way. And because I decided to react that way, guess what I'm doing? My body says, because I decided, not going to let it bother me. It's a good idea, right? It's a Good idea. I'm not going to let it bother me. Then what happens? Body says, Sean, I like that stress hormone, cortisol. I like a little push of insulin. I'm used to some higher blood sugar. In fact, I'm used to that nervous system jolting me when you're a little ticked off about stuff. In fact, I think you need to kind of give us a little bit of that, not a lot of that, just a little bit of that. Remember, we're trying to stop eating sugar. We're trying to stop this. We're trying to stop that. And you can feel yourself being called. It's like, I can't stop that. I'll only have one piece of cake. But, there is a whole cake, and I don't want to throw it away, and I don't want to waste it. That would be awful. That would be wrong, because I'd be wasting money, right? So I might just eat the whole cake. But I'll stop there, and I won't do anything else. Does that make sense? We do it with everything in our life, every emotion, every feeling, everything. And our body goes, what are you doing? You can't just decide to stop. Can't happen. That's why it takes a good period of time for addictive habits to take time to stop. Okay? I'm going to stop nagging my wife. I'm just gonna. But she does that, and that's, she causes me to. Is that true? It's not. She and he doesn't cause anything. They might try really hard to hurt you, but the point is, totally your choice. It's totally based upon your past. It's totally based upon everything else. Remember, we had a great discussion about people look at everybody's face and their tone and they don't listen to anything they say? Okay, why? They've been trained to. I know what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, when you're going to say it, what you mean before you ever speak, because I see the eyebrows up, right? That make sense so far? Okay. Emotions are in control. It's not reactive. It's been created from the time you were little. Remember the twins? And they reacted differently to mom saying, you better. And they're only 5 years old, but they already know what they already got figured out. They're not thinking, they're just reacting because they've been trained. Mom doesn't do anything. Mom's going to smack you. It's going to happen. You better start crying, okay? Your emotions are molded over those period of time. So when we find out that we have a situation, that we react a certain way, we have a tendency to find the bad boyfriend, we have a tendency to find this, why? We go back to familiarity because our system is quite familiar with it, right? In fact, it searches it out. I don't understand why she wants to date him, or vice versa, or why they act like that at work. Why do they respond like that? Well, you're starting to see exactly the pattern. Here's the thing that bothers me about modern day counseling is we find out that it's a bad dad. Dad wasn't a good dad. Dad wasn't there. Dad wasn't that. Dad wasn't a nice guy. Dad always put me down. Dad never found any good in me. Dad. And so the therapist goes, dude, you got it. It's dad. Good. Okay, I got to figure it out. Dad's the problem, and this is how it affected me, and this is how I feel. So we got to figure it out. Problem is, Dad bothered you when? He bothered you at the ball field. He embarrassed you in front of the Cub Foods. He embarrassed you at school. He embarrassed you in front of the kids. He embarrassed you in front of the wife. He was derogatory in front of the pastor. He was not very nice. He said you're a fatty when you weren't fat. He pulled fruit from you. Do you know how many times Dad has made you feel that way? And often in counseling, they don't say, hey, you're going to feel this way 1,000,000 times. You're not getting better today. You got years of identification of feeling that way, and you'll know that it's Dad because you get this feeling of I'm inept, or I'm not good enough, or I'm something. You just get that feeling, don't you? Well, the problem that I have is many times we don't point out all those things, and we don't keep drilling it down until you get an idea to work through everything. So that's why, I was pretty good for a year, then I came back. Well, why'd you come back? Well, it's kind of the same thing. But it's a different situation. I only used to date dwarfs that were redheads. Now I do giants that are blondes. They still treat me the same. I don't get it. Why? Follow me? Okay. All right, so here it is. We predict. So you predict when you walked in here, you can see what I'm going to say. How I'm going to do it. How you're going to get here in the car. Don't you? You kind of predict, I'm going to do this, some curves. I'm going to get here, and I'm going to be reasonably on time, and da-da-da, right? And then I simulate the traffic. Oh my gosh. You never had the person that talks about traffic all the time? It's always about the traffic and the weather. Oh my gosh, it's going to be awful. It's going to be one of the worst things ever. And guess what? It's the worst traffic ever. There's only 2 cars, but they thought it was the worst ever, right? Okay, then they compare and go from there. So remember, you sit down and you have this massive meal. There's 32 forks and 32 knives and a bunch of spoons, and you have no idea what they do. And you've never been there. You've never been in that environment before, and everybody knows it, you think. So you're looking at everybody to figure out what they're going to grab first because you have no idea what's going to happen. Follow me? The perception. Then you simulate what's going to happen. Man, if I grab the wrong spoon, everybody's going to giggle. Everybody's going to this. Everybody's going to that. Follow me? Okay? So you construct that simulation. Then you infer what's going to happen. And oddly enough, isn't it funny how a lot of those things happen that way? In fact, how about we talk about anxiety-ridden people and we can say, often it never happens that way, but they are so worried of all these terrible things that they never do anything because they're afraid to death. They've scared themselves to death in simulation so that they can't go anywhere. Period. They just can't. Okay? Simulation is the default of all mental activity. 85% of what you do all day long by the time you're 35 years old is this. You're an automation. Right? It's like, what did you eat? I don't know. I don't remember. Well, maybe. And then you got to really think hard because I have oatmeal every day. I put a butter of this on it. I do that and I do this. Same thing, my hair and all that kind of stuff. It's just automated because we're not consciously there. But here's the depressed person. They can't imagine anything that they would do or anybody would want them there or that anybody would care about them being there. So they isolate and eliminate themselves. They get stuck here often. Okay? Once upon a time, a magical kingdom far beyond the most distant mountains, there lived a beautiful princess who bled to death. Does that seem right? They would not, would they? Okay? So why? You kind of read it, you kind of thought it's going to be this, it's going to be this, and then all of a sudden, whoa, that is not the right line. You resolve the error and you go back through. So if I show you another one, you might think, oh, he's going to do something else stupid like that, right? But otherwise, you were just going to read the fairy tale, right? So if anything occurs that's beyond the norm of what you expect, what do? Either you learn or you don't. Okay? I told many of you the cupcake and the muffin. Okay? Okay? Does anybody not know the cupcake and the muffin? No? You don't know it? Okay, so 100 kids from college, because of course they do this to college kids. That's why they go to college, right? Okay? 100 kids, they draw blood work, and they fill out a paperwork on a muffin. Okay? Are muffins good for you? What's the texture like? What it tastes like? Did you enjoy it? And then about 2 hours later, they draw another blood draw, and they measure them. And then next week, they give them a cupcake, go through the exact same thing. Exact same thing. Okay? And what they don't know is that these are exactly the same ingredients. And then they measure it and they find out what? That for some reason they process the muffin different than the cupcake. Because they believe the muffin is healthy. It's healthy. So thus, if it's healthy, my body can handle it, I do better. So here's the bottom line. Our emotional state about anything that comes up, anything that we do, anything that we've decided emotionally to be a certain way, guess what? Your body changes. It's going to be a bad event. Well, it's probably a bad event. You know, you ever see anybody been to something and it's the coolest thing ever, you're thinking, and they're going, yeah, I'd never go back to that. That's the worst thing ever. Okay? Important to know that even your decision of how you're going to lose weight, how you're going to exercise, how you're going to experience things, starts with the decision. Are you a muffin or a cupcake? And I think that's really a good thing to just kind of compare to is, am I doing the muffin thing or am I being a cupcake? Everything's going to hurt, everything's going to be bad, and everything's going to be awful, right? Which one is it? You decide, and guess what? You'll tell your body it's probably going to be that way. And guess what? Oddly enough, it usually is that way. Isn't that weird? Okay? Body budget. What's the body budget? Okay? So remember the twins? Mom threatens. Okay? Which twin is flipping out? Blood pressure's going up, heart's pumping, they're stressed out, their sympathetic system's there, they're starting to worry. It's the twin that thinks mom's going to wail on her and she starts crying, right? Body budget. That's not a good body budget, right? So if we wanted to ask her a question about anything, what answer do you think we'd get? I don't know, but mom's going to be, well, the other one's going, yeah, mom's not going to do anything. Not a big deal. She would probably be in the right mind. You could ask her a question and she'd probably be right there, wouldn't she? Two experiences, exactly the same, thought of differently by twins. And there's plenty of proof in the research that shows these type of things. So your body budget, how do you feel? So guess what? When you feel physically bad, how are you emotionally? Are you fun? Joy to be around? So people who will not take care of their diet, their exercise, their stress load, their sleep habits, and chronic pain drives them into misery because they feel bad all the time. And it affects how your emotions react, doesn't it? Make sense? Okay? So you start to see the whole process that's associated with this, right? Hopefully it gets a little bit clearer. And I only mentioned the affect, okay? You can see them coming. That guy's pissed. And he's got the look, whatever the look is, right? You've decided. And you might have just heard some bad news, but you don't know. You just decided, right? But the affect is just a general sense of well-being. You come out and say, hey, how are you feeling? So I'm doing great. And then they limp off like this, and is that really true? Well, no, that's the answer, right? But if you look at the real affect is their physical body, their actions, their attitude, how they're talking, their tone, how they listen, period. How they look, disheveled or if they got spots on them. You look at all that, don't you? It's an affect. It's an appearance. It says something. If they won't care for themselves, will they care for you? Does that make sense? Okay? So one thing that I mentioned Lisa Feldman because a lot of her research is just so right on. So the bottom line is human brain is an anatomical structure so that no decision or action can be free of interoception. The body budget and affect. In other words, how you physically feel changes how you decide on anything in your life. Everything changes by how you feel and your attitude. Isn't that weird? And we think the guys think we're so logical. I had an older gentleman, he's not here tonight, I probably killed him after that last time, because I said, how logical you're in decision. He says, well, at least 50%. So we got through all this, he says, yeah, I don't think I do it 50%. I said, yeah, it's literally impossible. You cannot do it. So think about it. You're physically in pain or emotionally in pain every day, all day long, for any reason. Remember those stressors? What do we know is going to happen? It's hard to be rational. You might make a different decision tomorrow based upon whether you have gas or not. Constipation, a bunion, whatever it is. But you got to keep that in mind. Okay? That's why it's always okay to change your mind, right? It's always okay to change your mind. Your bodily feeling right now will project forward to influence what you feel and do in the future. It's an elegant orchestration, self-fulfillment of prophecy. Isn't that weird? It just seems to come out that way because you kind of decided it's going to. If you got a dumpy situation at work, guess what? It's dumpy and it doesn't matter what anybody does. Okay? Fixed mindset. Believe that your qualities are carved in stone creates an urgency to prove yourself over and over. Why? They're always trying to make everybody happy, man. Remember the authentic guy? He didn't give a hoot. Or lady, they don't give a hoot. It's like, hey, why didn't you clean that? I said, yeah, dude, pretty good. Pretty good. It's good enough for me. I'm all right with that. Okay? Growth mindset. The idea is you do have what you have, but the harder you work and the harder you aim at it, guess what happens? You can improve it, right? A majority of major people that own companies and thrive in life and become good in their field, they're this. They don't think failure is a failure. They just think it's an opportunity to learn. Okay? And if you don't do anything else tonight, but write down everything that you have a negative mindset on, that's a really big deal. Like, I'm never going to get better. My spouse is never this. My work's never going to this. I'm never going to lose that weight. If that alone doesn't change, you don't have a shot, does it? And so as a man thinketh in his heart, 100% of the time. Okay? Here's the big five. Now, are there other things like sadness and all kinds of stuff that are part of this? Absolutely. Can't exclude them. But these are the big guys that really drive a lot of things. Problem is we can't spend a huge amount of time on this. Can anybody tell me exactly how we know somebody's depressed? let's say they're mild to moderate. Let's not talk about the schizo severe and they're in the hospital for care. But mild to moderate, how do we know they're depressed? Hmm? Sad? It's like you know somebody. Does that sound right? How about an anxious person? Okay. Anything different about an anxious person? One with anxiety?
Heart palpitations.
Intense physical feelings of symptoms. Where'd they come from? They aren't running in place.
They're in your mind and they go to your gut.
How's that work?
I don't know, but that's how it's working.
It is working right now, right? Okay. Does that make sense? So you see these two things all the time. Depression, anxiety. Depression. I've got depression. Okay, well, what do you mean? Are you depressed? Are you miserable? Well, I guess I'm miserable, not really depressed. Because if I'm depressed, then they'd know I was depressed. How would you know you're depressed if you don't act depressed? Oh, if I don't act depressed, I'm not depressed. How odd. Okay? Guilt and shame. You cannot shame or guilt or belittle people into changing their behaviors. It may cause a temporary change because you hammer them, but it never lasts long and it's very damaging to the person and the person doing it, oddly enough. Okay? Shame. It is an intensely painful feeling of experience of believing we are flawed as a person and therefore unworthy of acceptance and belonging. Is this an indicator of a fixed mindset? I am. Difference between guilt is what? I've done something wrong and I can change it, right? I committed an error and I can stop. We get confused about those two, and you really shouldn't get confused about them. You can be guilty of something and go apologize, or know you've done something wrong and feel bad about it. But guilt is not who you are. It's just something you did, right? And I can't believe how many people don't even understand the difference between those two. Okay? I am. Shame informs us of an internal state of being. Inadequate, never enough, lazy, not smart enough. I'm just not. Being rejected. You fear somebody's going to find out who you really are, whoever that is, because you made it up yourself, you know. Self-loathing thoughts. Shame is like prison. Remember we talked about prison. You just lock yourself into it because you are. And they don't act that way because I'm this way. Well, that's not true either, but we buy it, right? Here's women, because it's a little bit different, and I think it's important to show the difference. Women have an impossible task of negotiating and balancing life while meeting personal, family, and social expectations that are unattainable and are often conflicting. And that is really just the way it really is. From what I know, but not being a woman, I ask other people and read. Okay? Not a good wife or mother, you're overweight, you're just not attractive because they compare it to what? Okay? One thing I'd love to bring a lot of magazines say, find yourself, and then just, they bring up a picture of a shoe. Well, that I have shoe like that. Was that your foot? No, my foot's big and crooked toes, and that's what they're thinking, right? So, okay, so just not smart enough because somebody told them that, and they bought it. No one will take me seriously, and then social expectations. Men, it's a little bit different. Society tells us to be open and vulnerable, but when we do, we get the shit kicked out of us from other men specifically. That's not what men do. And then many times from the women closest to us, because they don't want you to be weak. They need you to be strong. Remember, this is societal tendencies, okay? Must look strong and powerful, fearless, in control, successful, and capable at all times. Remember, this is a lot of stuff that men do with men. One of the biggest things that men getting through high school is making sure that they look as though somebody can't stick them in a locker and shut the door. That they can kick somebody's ass. That's really the biggest thing. You don't want to think, you want walk around feeling as though men can do something to you that you can't defend against. That's really a big deal. Isn't that weird? We walk around thinking about that stuff. And usually if it's really big guys, I don't worry about it. But a lot of the smaller guys, muscly short guys, they think about it all day long. Isn't that weird? Women are thinking about something else, like their hair looking nice and what did she say about me? And then the guys are going, that guy looks like he's going to kick my ass. And they're worried about it. And they walk around thinking about it. Isn't that weird? Different. But in some ways, the same type of shame feeling occurs. Okay? Shame for men is being wrong. Not doing it wrong, just being wrong. Like never using the map. And if they're lost, they're not lost. Okay? It's actually an issue. Can't show fear. One of men's greatest fears is being criticized, ridiculed, make fun of me. Yeah, okay, I'll show you. I'll tell you my innermost feelings. And the wife's going, yeah, he's out there crying about this stuff. He is so soft and tender. He's such a big wimp. He's Mr. Tender Eyes. That is ridiculous. That's not a guy, but that's my husband. That's the way it is, right? Okay? Any failure. So when they fail at work, they fail at money, they fail at anything, they're failures. It's not an opportunity to learn. They failed because expectations, right? Okay? Remember this? So every time that these things happen, what do you think they're going through? Every single time. So when I look at the guy that might beat me up and stick me inside the locker, a little big for the locker, it's a really big locker, but I'm doing what? I'm sending out transmitters like, okay, dude, I got to look for exits. I got to see if I got anybody between us, and where's the next classroom. I'm dropping peptides everywhere, and I'm thinking my muscles are getting ready, and my heart's pumping up. I have all these big things, and then I'm trying to predict what that big bully's going to do. And guys walk around doing this all the time. They even do it at work. They even do it in real life. They walk into gatherings, and they're concerned, if it's a gathering they don't know everybody, that something's going to happen to them and their wife. They're looking and see if anybody looks strange that could hurt somebody. They're thinking like that. Okay? Isn't that weird? But we think about, that guy's over there talking to my wife a little too close, and it's not just jealousy. It's like he's got his hand on her shoulder. They get really nervous about that, and it's not property. It's also offense, crossing borders. That's my wife. What are you doing? You see what I mean? We think like that. Women think different. Okay? But we feel the same. Okay? Here's the issue. It's a fear reaction no matter what. I'm thinking, that guy's gonna. Okay? It's a fear reaction. Everything that we feel, most of the time that's more negative, guess what? Tell me anything that you feel that's negative that doesn't have some type of fear reaction. Some type. Some type. Going to run the credit card. You don't know if there's enough on it. It's really embarrassing. And you're almost fearful of it. We blame somebody else. Well, the man ain't paying me enough. My spouse spent too much. They didn't tell me what was going on. I didn't hear the whole story. It's somebody else's fault, including I can just blame me. I'm not good enough. I'm not successful enough. I can't do it well enough. I this. And men and women do this all day long. And what do? They disconnect and isolate. We'll keep looking at this over and over because you'll have a hard time picking away at it once you apply it to all kinds of different situations. I probably ran this through about 80 different scenarios. It still came back to you're going to go through that. I tried to list as many as I can. It's not going to list every word, but it'll give you an idea. It is usually driven by those words and those feelings in some way. Okay, just so you know. Okay, can't put it all in there. Loneliness, power of one. Okay, anybody got any cell phones? 20% of Americans feel alone. Okay, social isolation, real or unreal, huge health consequence. Why? Alone. Nobody cares. I'm alone. Subject experience of loneliness and chronic feelings of isolation drive a stress cascade that accelerates our aging process significantly. You don't get old, stop being old. Stop being alone. Okay? Chronic subjective loneliness may cause genetic expression changes. Isn't that weird? Why? Because all negative emotions and positive emotions actually affect your genetics. If you want to write that down, that is actually a loneliness scale that you can actually look at. And what's interesting is about 10 years old, whatever your scale is, you have a tendency to be the same scale up until you're 50. Unless you change. So that means by 10 years old, all these things you ever had anybody in the family that they either look at themselves negatively, or they always the loner that's always off by themselves, not playing with anybody else? You don't really get why. you know? And that can be very young, that can be older, but it's a tendency, and usually it starts back then. Life event charts give you a little idea, okay? So when we want to do something in jail to make sure that the person straightens up, we isolate them. Leave somebody off the birthday list, we isolate them. Picking the same person last every time, isolation, isn't it? The person who, yeah, but we got to win. We can't, that guy's bad. I can't pick him. He's the last guy. We lose every time we've got him, right? Guys have all the justification for our stupidity, don't we? Okay? The person who doesn't agree with you, hey, I just won't talk to them. I'm only going to talk to the group that agrees with me all the time. So how do you grow? How do you become? How do you change? And how do you know other people have got other views? Because you're too busy isolating yourselves. Politics do that. Religions do that. A lot of things do that. Family relationships do that. But wow, one way to punish, let's do that. Okay, someone different, okay, slower learning than everybody else. The teacher does what? They ignore him. Why? Because that guy's not up to snuff, man. Doesn't pay attention to class. I only got so much time. I got 32 kids. I haven't got any assistants. All true, right? It's literally an impossible scenario, but then they got to make a choice of the other 31 kids with one kid that's kind of a brat. Why? Because they don't have the home life, they don't get the attention, they don't whatever, right? It is used to correct and torture, or it can be used in a healthy way if used correctly, but we need to understand what it is. This is the setup that I think is torturous. Okay? Why do we give our kids cell phones? Safety. Why? We can reach them. We can call them. They can let us know if something's happened. If a burglar's attacking them, they can call us. I don't think that's happening. Okay? Why do we give kids cell phones? Know where they're at. Anything else besides that? Safety? Yeah, entertain them. Absolutely. Don't have to worry about it. Anything else? Okay? We've sacrificed immediate response with a few people that we trust and know for instant painful response from thousands and millions of people, right? We set our kids up for it. And we wonder why they're acting like that. Why they feel that way. Why their feelings are hurt, okay? We're training our child to rely on people we don't know. So let's just take our kids to a group of about 100 kids we never met, throw them in, and let them just pound on them emotionally, pick them up, take them home, say, yeah, but I knew where they were. They're safe. Isn't that what's happening? That's the truth. It's hard as a parent. I've done it. I bought it for my kids. I'm thinking, the more I know, the more I'm thinking, what was I thinking, man? I mean, my parents didn't know, okay? No one helps them to deal with the first, second, third. In fact, they're so used to rejection by the time they're 7 or 8 years old, sending a few Insta pics or Instagrams or whatever else they do, they're pretty much done. They're already starting to figure out that they have to fit in with the group, because they don't fit in with the group, they're going to get abused. That's where you start losing your kids. You start losing each other. I mean, how many times we sit out here waiting for patients and we got 2 kids and mom and ready? Yeah, just a second here. You kids, are you ready? Yeah, okay, finish up your game and let's go. And that's the conversation piece, and that's normal. And that's so normal. It's frightening, okay? All right. Cell phone hell. We set them up to be hurt, dragged through the mud at a very young age, tender age, but we know they're safe. From what? We don't want them physically to get hurt, but we make sure they're emotionally destroyed. Okay? We promote the development of hurtful emotions that are reinforced over and over each day until they feel what? So why so many kids commit suicide? They compromise to fit in, to get those responses, to get the adrenaline. So they take their clothes off. They do this, they do that. They do all kinds of crazy things that they would never do with a parent that's part of their life. Isn't it? So I don't know. It's a tough decision. How do you protect them? But I think it's a bigger deal than what people think, and I think we don't think. I think we are so convenience-driven and we're so busy that we don't have enough time to think. But can you imagine that's really happening? You all have seen it in your children and your grandchildren. That's what we're doing. Okay? Depression. Abuse, physical, mental, and emotional. This is one area I just want you to kind of put on hold. Let me tell you why. It's because certain medications cause the feelings of those things. We know it. Isn't it interesting? Accutane, that's the thing we give our kids. Make sure their pimples are better. And we know that depression follows that within 30 to 35% of the cases. Okay? We know 90% of people have had a heart attack or depressed for the next year or two and may never return out of it, but we never deal with the depression. We just make sure they got the blue pill, the pink pill, and the yellow pill. And they're told to follow the diet, but they don't really care about it because only 15% are doing it in about a year. Does that make sense? Okay? But these things make sense, right? These could make you depressed. History of depression. Why? Well, let me think. Grandma was depressed. Mom was depressed. And I'm depressed. It's genetic. It's got nothing to do with me. Totally genetic. Well, did they run a spinal tap and some blood work to find a chemical abnormality? No. But I know I am because they were. Well, how about they trained you to feel exactly the same way they did because that's all you saw? Exactly. So I will ask moms and dads, how you doing, Mom and Dad? Are you happy? Are things going well? Are you really excited? They say, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. I'm yelling at the kids. I don't feel really good about this. And they go through all this. I said, so you're training them to be a happy mom is to be miserable, tired, exhausted, grumpy, and irritated about everything, and you want them to do that. Isn't that weird? But that's what we do. A lot of us, chasing the wrong thing. I did it for many years, chasing the wrong things, until I started figuring it out. Slowly, very slowly on my part. Okay? So, long-term disease, why? I'm never going to get better. I might never, remember, our medical systems developed to make sure you stay in chronic discomfort or disease because fixing you can't do. Which isn't true. Okay? In fact, we probably have a lot of things we could do, but what would they do? They need somebody to take all this stuff and go to the hospital and see doctors all the time that they really don't need and give them things that never fix anything. Odd, isn't it? But we pay for it, okay? And if you look back, see if any of these, except for the medications, aren't going through this pattern. Easy on this one, isn't it? Pretty easy on that one. Because guess what? What's the number one thing that happens, one of the first responses to a person dying? Anger. You get dang gone pissed off. Well, you know, the guy or girl just kind of died. Well, they should have. That is ridiculous. They didn't take care of themselves. They did this. They did that. Right? We blame them. Now, it's just a natural response of normal. Because you're kind of pissed they're gone. You kind of liked them. Or maybe you didn't like them. Doesn't matter. You're still mad. So why do we get mad about it? Because of that one. What's it going to be like without them? What's it going to feel like not being, I'm used to her being there. She didn't even like me, but I still liked her being there. I'm used to it for 52 years. I don't know what to do without that. You know what I mean? Okay, so you do that, your normal reaction's that, and then what do? I don't need you to come over, honey. I can fix my meals. I don't need this. I don't need that. And whenever you get somebody like that and they're in this, ignore them. Bring food, bring cards, drop off everything. They're yelling at you, never bring it back, and you bring them something the next day. Why? Because that's what they need. Somebody who just cares enough to know that you are lost your mind right now, and we're going to help you through it until you stop losing your mind, right? Because it used to be grandma and grandpa or whoever lived right next door, and they're coming over, honey, it doesn't matter. Get off that stupid chair. You know, they'd drag you in there, make you fix food, eat food, stuff it down your throat, make you go out and chase the chickens. They'd make you do something, right? Well, we don't have them around as much anymore, do we? Isn't it cool? Anxiety. Isn't it interesting? I got this from 4 or 5 different websites, kept saying the same thing. Stress, stress, stress. What's it mean? Serious illness, side effect from medications, symptoms of illness, or just a fear factor of, oh my God, I couldn't breathe one time, almost drowned, and thus I'm fearful of never getting air again. So the idea of dropping from high heights and drowning in water bothers me. Don't know why. I think it's the breathing thing. I think I like it. I like breathing. Okay? So, but isn't this make sense? You really don't get anxiety about, you got anxiety about something. In fact, they're committed to the something. I don't know why, but I'm anxious whenever I'm going over there. I'm this about that. And what are they doing? They're thinking about all these things that are going to happen or might never happen, and they're so miserable they can't face it. They can't deal with it. I've actually had a guy that's about $100 millionaire, okay? And he was so stressed out about this, he was paralyzed. Paralyzed. Because he thought that 100 million could go away tomorrow. So what did he do? 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, worked all the time. That's all he did because he had anxiety. He pictured everything that could take all of his money in. He owned buildings. He owned most of the west side of Indianapolis. The oddest thing ever. I said, you need help, right? You just need some help, okay? Here's that emotional response. Making sense now a little bit more. You start seeing it in situations that you can't get stressed about work without the fear of what? Fear I'm not going to be successful. Fear I'm going to fail. Fear that it's not going to go well. The teacher's going to be mean to me. He won't like me because I'm this or that or whatever. And then you blame. Well, that's because the teacher didn't like me or this did that. And then I disconnect and I say, forget it. I'm just not going to try. Why try when everything's against me? Okay? Make sense? And remember, all this is happening. You feel something. You commit to an occurrence. And your brain ties it in, your whole body's tied in, every single cell is committed to your thought to not chewing your nails. Remember? So think of all the really serious stuff that have occurred, traumatic events, accidents, things like that. How could you, all that's happening immediately. You get the call and you don't know where the kid's at. Well, he's probably being abused by a bunch of other kids on the cell phone, but that's okay. You still got to find him, right? Isn't that wild? Okay. So, with all that said, let's talk about ways to improve it. Okay? The only thing I want you to know, this is what's happening to you and has happened from the time you were born. And to find a way out of it and to help yourself is the entire goal. Okay? So let's find simple patterns that you can do that make sense. Chemical environment needs to be managed. Okay? Why? Body budget, et cetera, et cetera. Forming new pathways have to be done. I'm a big believer in reading books, talking to safe people, and working on these things. And I think physicians, healthcare specialists, counselors, pastors, psychiatrists, and psychologists, very valuable, but make sure that you're going somewhere. You don't get anywhere, you got to change. Okay? You don't want to learn that the hard way. Okay? I didn't cover this in detail because think of how many different categories of conditions that you could have that affect this. Here's the one that drives me nuts. Person comes in, they're on 7 medications, not a single vitamin. Now, why does that bother me? They all know that every medication drives and causes an occurrence in the body that causes nutritional deficiencies. So if you know you're causing the nutritional deficiency, why wouldn't you give that if you know what's causing it? Because that's why they often end up on other medications, right? So my son's in medical school, finished medical school, it's in his residency. Before he was there and he was doing like the practice consults, he comes out of the room and he's supposed to write up his findings. It was an alcoholic, severe alcoholic that had high blood pressure, 55 years old. He was a guy that lived on the streets, really struggling, but in bad shape, right? Comes out and he writes out the high blood pressure medication that he recommended, and he put down B vitamins, vitamin C, and such and such. Now, our son is a chemist. He has a master's in chemistry, so he knows what he's thinking and talking about. And the resident came over and he says, "What's that shit?" And he says, "Well, without those, that won't work." He says, "We don't do that kind of crap around here. Just give him another high blood pressure medication. Stop wasting everybody's time." So what's he going to do? He's a student, right? That's the training. That's what you're faced when you walk in. It's not because they're bad people. It's because they aren't trained to integrate care. That's all. Okay?
I saw my doctor about something once, and I said, well, I was taking fish oil, and he goes, well, if you want to try berries and twigs, it's okay with me. And I just totally dismissed it. That there was no benefit at all.
Nope. Yeah, but if there's no benefit, why does that cause the deficiencies? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Okay, so what do? We do basic things. Why is that important right there? This one's important because we, started telling everybody eat 10% fat. Now, remember, 60% of your body's fat after you get water out of your system, but they don't want you to eat fat. Your whole brain's fat. The covering of every cell in your body is fat. You don't eat healthy fats, you're not healthy. Okay? That's why we used to soak things in lard and give it to our, don't recommend that, but you know what I mean? But why is this? I picked this vitamins and minerals. So these are things that if you don't have them every day, your body becomes unhealthy. And your body can't make them, so you must give it to them. We also know the majority of our food in the country is poorly made, right? So because I'm anal like this, I got the reports for 1932, 1960, and the year 2000, where they take most of our produced crop and they analyze it for all the nutritional levels, okay? So by the time you look at 1932 to the year 2000, if you look at magnesium alone, there's only 17% of what was in 1930s. How would you get enough magnesium? You would have to eat 16 loads of broccoli to get enough magnesium to keep you healthy. Magnesium is number one cause of high blood pressure, muscle achiness, lack of sleep, muscle strength. It goes on and on and on. It actually affects over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. Pretty important, right? But it's not even in your food. So if you're just eating basic food, guess what? You're probably not getting enough to survive, right? So that's just truth. That's just the way it is. Okay? So, but here's what I want to mention. There's 9 essential of these, okay? So people that move to vegetarianism, those types of diets, I highly recommend. But you better be a good one. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you will become deficient here. Because you ever talk to most vegetarians? They are tired. They say, I can go all day, but I'm tired all the time. Why? They're deficient in this, they're deficient in this. B vitamins, iron for women, fatty acids. Just so you know. So keep that in mind if you use that type of diet. Now, eating crickets will make up for it. There's a lot of protein in crickets. Because now they have cricket flour. So you can make the muffins and the cupcakes. You could, couldn't you? Okay. So bottom line is healthy carbohydrates. Notice I say clean mineralized water. Until we started producing our own water systems, what did we drink? Spring water, well water. What did it have? So we get reverse osmosis water. Okay? Ain't got a stinking thing in it but water, right? I mean, but H2O. Nothing. And then people come in and say, yeah, I said, I'm doing the history. I go, how you feeling? I says, I'm pretty tired a lot. I feel like a wet rag. I'm tired. Okay. You got a reverse osmosis. How'd you know that? Well, because that's kind of what happens when you have reverse osmosis. You just got it's a good idea because it's cleaner water. The point of it is you've got to adjust. Does that make sense? So keep those things in mind. And of course, if you need any other type of homeopathics, herbals, essential oils, all these play huge roles. This has made a huge comeback, essential oils. Okay? My belief is that's what we used to use. Thousands and thousands of years of stuff is medicinal. You don't use it willy-nilly. You use it with wisdom because you can overuse it very easily. It's powerful. It works. Okay? And the only thing I don't like about it is we're trying to make sure that people think that that's the most important thing and these are not brought into it. Now we cover it, but then we're doing that. So it's kind of like anything else. It'll come back into balance and then it'll be, something else will pop up. But very useful. Love it for home care. Love it. Okay? So keep it in mind. Environmental factors are key. I say that and nobody thinks about peace and quiet, do they? So I better list the reality. That's huge. Okay? Foods, non-GMO, best you can. Find a diet that works. Everybody wants to know what diet. The one that works. Okay? If you're the paleo guy, do it. If you're the vegetarian, you feel great. I have people come in, they'll say, I said, when do you feel good? You feel pretty bad. They said, when I used to eat like this, I felt good. I said, why don't you do that? And they go, oh, yeah, I should try that. I think, well, yeah, let's do that. That just makes sense, right? It's kind of silly, isn't it? Because we read things and we go, oh, man, I'll try that. And they go running off with diets because they're 5 pounds overweight because they haven't exercised for 6 weeks. You know what I mean? So keep those things in mind. And there's some diets that are just bad, called sugar. Okay? All right. New circuits. Remember we talked about the brain, what it does? Okay? Here's your big goal. Be aware, mindful. Remember, at 35 years old, 85% of what you do, you don't think about. You just do it. You get up and walk. You get out of the chair, you don't think about it. You know, you make gestures, put on this, put on your coat, and whatever. You drive on in, you kind of see the road, but you're not really there, are you? Okay? Be focused. One of the biggest challenges that my pastor ever gave me is to be mindful, present at every patient all the time without thinking about anything else but who's sitting in front of me. I was awful. So it took me 2 years to get to noon. No, 3 years. I'd be 15 minutes took me about a month, okay? Because, I'm thinking about the next patient or what I have to do, the paperwork, whatever. So most of you know that when I'm there, I'm there. And the reason why I'm there is because it's the right thing to do. I also get more done, and everything else gets done. It's the oddest thing, okay? So being there makes a big difference, okay? Active medication. Meditation can just be deep breathing. Meaning, you catch yourself, you go, okay. You reset. You continue. Mostly if you're irritated. So people that have a lot of chronic pain, if they're really having a bad day, I'll put them in a room, shut off the lights, get them in a comfortable position and say, you're going to take deep breaths for 5 to 10 minutes. You'll come back in, you'll be 50% better. Oh, no, I won't. I said, just try it. You come back in, they say, yeah, I'm 50% better. Why? A lot of oxygen, relaxation, calming. Does that make sense? It affects for anybody, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain. Keep that in mind, all right? Massage. Now, this will sound silly. The reason I'll send some people for massage because they don't feel their body. Do you know what I mean by not feel your body? They are not in touch with themselves very well. They don't understand the difference between pressure, tenderness, soreness, achiness. They just don't know. They have lost that capability because they have numbed themselves to it. They ignore it. They walk through it until, oh my gosh, you didn't know it was that tender. Go, well, yeah, it's that tender. It's like so tender, I can't hardly, so they ignore it. This is to draw attention so when a good massage therapist is palpating through that you feel the fluid pushing, that you feel the blood warming up in the skin, and you start attaching that feeling to something good. Because there are a lot of people, about 25%, that lose, not sensation like their nervous system's bad, but they've detached from feeling, because all feeling hurts. Some it's physical pain, some it's emotional pain, but it's 25%. That's why I'm really big on massage therapists, just simply because they change how people feel. And we know theoretically, as well as professionally, once a month massages make a huge difference in just your well-being, just by pushing fluids, things like that. It's a very healthy thing to do. Separation, expressive writing separates you from your thoughts. Remember this sleep thing? Some people say, yeah, I get a good night's sleep, I'm great the next day. I'm just in great shape. But expressive writing, anybody got an idea what that means? Journaling's one. Some people, journaling's a way to keep them. And expressive writing has a tendency to be, I write down everything I think and feel, okay? A neurosurgeon out of Seattle started a chronic pain center, and he was one of the best surgeons in the country. And he found how unsuccessful he was because he's doing the same surgeries everybody else was. So he started looking into circuit pathway retraining, and this was one of the biggest things. He says, in 2 months of every day writing down everything you like and don't like, reading it over, shredding it in small pieces and throw it in the trash, in 2 months they will lose 50 to 80% of their pain. Why? They're eliminating the emotional relationship of the pain to the person. Because can you not emotionally be upset when you hurt? It's impossible. So oddly enough, you start separating this, pain gets better. He has proof of it. So they fired him because he stopped doing all the surgeries, because 82% that normally got surgeries didn't get surgeries anymore if they followed these patterns. This is his pattern, and it happens to be the exact same pattern for all the other conditions of blame, of shame, of guilt, of depression, of anxiety. It's the same pattern of pathways, okay? Isn't that weird? Get a good night's sleep, makes a big difference, okay? It's odd, the ones that actually start getting sleep, what they do. It's like, I feel pretty good. I don't even hurt as bad. What a novel idea, okay? So reprogramming. Meditation. Meditation is not emptying your mind so that an evil spirit will take over and run your life into the ground. I just wanted to say that. Satan will enter. No, we scare people with stuff like that, and the truth of the matter is what you're meditating on is the issue. If you want to be praying to a God, that's okay. If you just want to let go and let everything out so that your body just relaxes and calms down and feels peace, and that's all you feel, you can do that. If you want to do devil worshiping, you can do that, but we're not recommending it. It's not really therapeutic, okay? So keep in mind that this is good, depending on how you do it and what you're doing it for and the purpose of it. So keep that in mind, okay? Praying has helped. We know that. You see this, it says 21 days. They always say 20. See, I think that's a big lie. Yeah, because I see it's almost always longer. I really do think it's longer. I think we get to 21 days, and because something triggers us at 19, we don't get to 21, but we think we got 21 because we think we dealt with it, and at about, you know what I mean? And then a few months later, we're right back, same pattern, okay? So I think it takes longer, my opinion. That's kind of depressing, but okay. Awareness, remember the whole awareness thing. Mindfully involving yourself, okay? Be present, practice 15 minutes a day. Notice these. I want you to do one thing for me. Whenever you have your next meal, chew 26 times. Every bite. 26 times, chew it, okay? Number 2, before you eat the bite, I want you to look at what the food looks like, the color, smell it, like grapes, cherries, whatever you want to have. Really look at it, the imperfections, unless it's a GMO grape or cherry, okay? And actually just get through one meal that you experience it, and I want you to see how you feel afterwards. It's actually surprising of how much you enjoy it instead of just pounding food, okay? So keep that in mind, okay? Active meditation, we kind of talked about some of those things, massage, okay. Separation, we talked about that. 60% of Americans are sleep deprived. This is a biggie. Definition, a renunciation of cessation of resentment, indignation, or anger. It is a non-conditional act. It is often completed unilateral. Isn't that kind of scary? Because we're waiting for everybody to have a mutual, before we can really forgive them. And what's the purpose of forgiving anybody for anything? Including yourself. It's a selfish choice to get well. That's all it is. Nothing else. Lack of forgiveness is a form of self-torture. I believe that's 100% right on. Just think about it. Every time you think about the person or thing or situation or organization or the way you were treated and it bothers you, does it feel good? You feel awful. Remember the body budget? The heart starts palpitating. You get irritated. Your blood pressure goes up. Your nervous system gets edged. And that's you not forgiving. It's a form of self-torture. Okay? Okay. Without forgiveness, you have sealed sadness, pain, and anger into your body. You will always live in the past. So don't you want to get beyond it? Don't you want to have a future? Don't you want to have a present and a future? All of us struggle with letting it go. And what would you lose if you did? It's like, well, I can't do that. That was a really bad guy. And these are evil, rotten, sneaky, and they got everything laid out, but they are not going to let go of it, are they? Right? So it's really important, okay? Someone or something else has a control over you. Ever thought about that? They control you from that point forward. And they're the ones that did the bad stuff. They control. Okay? Forgiveness allows you to let go of these things, decreases your stress hormones, releases general mind and body tension. This process continues the rest of your life. But you got to start there. About anything. Start there. Because we all got something we're cooking over. Okay? Choices of the past, attitudes, way we did something, failures. You still there? You got to let go. Okay? Easy to say, hard to do. So here's your reprogramming. Learn to do this. You don't have to be that. And it's amazing what that does. Gratitude. Gratitude just makes all kinds of difference. Appreciating it. My wife one time came out and said, I kind of saw this thing, it was just kind of interesting. I said, what's that? And she goes, so if you, the next day God only gave you what you were thankful for today, what did you have? I was thinking, man, I think I'd have a car. That's it. Because I'm just not thinking about it, taking it for granted. Isn't that unfortunate? Really, really unfortunate. So that was a good lesson for me. Okay? So developing your map, a foundation that you can grow on. Most of these things are something you can do, right? Have I given you too many things you can't do? Okay? I didn't tell everybody to do back flips. I didn't have them. No, these are thought-provoking, but things that you can do individually. Okay? So 5 to 15 minutes a day, that's all you got to do is write and get rid of that pain. Okay? Write freely. No grammar checks. Nobody comes in and checks them. Okay? Positive, negative thoughts. Rip it up. Okay? Active meditation. 5 to 15 seconds. You don't have 5 to 15 seconds. Take 3 deep breaths and get a break. Okay? Refocus. Good night's sleep. Melatonin's a big deal. If you have a problem, it regulates your system. Get it rolling. The idea of getting addicted to melatonin, I think, is a bit silly. However, you're not wanting to take 10 and 15 milligrams and all that kind of stuff. But it's pretty hard to get addicted to it. Number one, we also know that the higher your melatonin is, the lower your cancer rates. Okay? Just like vitamin D. So those 2 things I think are pretty positive depending on things. Okay? And understand the cause of that relationship between your emotional pain and your physical pain. Okay? This is a back to forgiveness. Why do I mention it twice? Because it's such a big deal. You know how much freer you feel when 2 gorillas don't hang out on your shoulders anymore? It's amazing. So does anybody have anything right tonight that you know of that you have not forgiven in yourself or somebody else? If you have not, please make a note to yourself. Just decide tonight, that's the one thing you're going to decide, an active process. Remember, you're going to decide not to chew your nails and forgive those people. And your body's going to start reacting because you started the process. Now you just got to follow through. Okay? Okay? One step at a time. It kind of sounds like what is it, 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Because it works because most of these things are the same. Find safe people. Set boundaries from family members that are nightmares. Okay? Okay? Find out what you can do each day. Just do it. Just do what you can do. Okay? Practice. Okay, so let me ask you this. If you pick 5 things tonight that you want to work on, and you work on them every single day for exactly 30 seconds on each item for 5 years, do you think you're going to be closer to your goal of improvement? If that's all you did. That's 2.5 minutes. Does that seem silly that we don't do 2.5 minutes? Just crazy, isn't it? 2.5 minutes, we don't do any of it. And we're still whining about the same thing, right? Okay? And expand your world. See, some of us are going to have some pain. Emotional pain, physical pain. Why? Losses that hurt. Physical pain that just isn't going to 100% abate. It doesn't mean you stop. You just live with the pain, learning how you accommodate to the pain so that you can still have a life. It doesn't mean you die. You don't stop. How do you get through it? Okay? Disentanglement from all pain. Okay? That's the dive into emotional reasons why, financial reasons, personal reasons. There's all kinds of reasons. Okay? Start some type of journey, regaining your purpose, establishing it, and giving back. Makes a big difference. Okay? That's the system every single time. Learn, receive instruction. If you don't know how to do it, find somebody to help you. That's what the experts are there. There's remarkable counselors with great hearts that know what they're doing, and they're going to do anything they can to help you through this process. Paying attention means you got to work on it. You got to actually just think about it a few minutes a day, and then you keep practicing it. And it's odd enough that we could then all have growth mindsets about the very things that have hurt us so that we can change our lives. That's it.